Everybody, what's going on? Welcome to my channel. Tammy here. You are here on Tammy Talks, where we talk TV and then pop culture, and sometimes they mesh, right? On my channel, I want to actually get into A Million Little Things this season. So I have been huge on A Million Little Things since the show first started a couple seasons ago. Um, I've been super busy this past couple of weeks, so I have not had a chance to watch the show or catch up on the episodes, but it's time. It's time. So I spent all yesterday actually catching up on the first 5 episodes of this season. I'm just trying to get the episode. So we are on IMDb is failing me. Oh my god, okay. The episode guide. Jesus Christ. So we are on this is season 4. And this is just like a recap of episodes 1 through 5. So really quick, higher level is not it won't be like scene by scene by scene or anything like that. One, because I don't remember what happened exactly in every single episode, but just kind of an overall. So the season picks up right where last season left off, where we know that Gary went over to Peter's house, Sophie's was she guitar teacher, where Gary went over to Peter's house, like kidnapped him, and we see him like put a bag over his head, whatever, whatever. So this season starts off with Gary like walking back into his own house, and we see like the cuts on his wrist and like the blood and stuff everywhere. His sweatshirt is ripped, all that type of stuff. Let's just wrap Gary up completely. So I've never liked Gary. I feel like Gary is just one of those people that he feels like he has to fix everything for everybody, whether they want him to or not. So Gary goes into these tirades where he feels that he is just the perfect friend and he can fix everything and he disguises everything with humor and all this other stuff. And it's like Gary continually makes mess after mess after mess. So basically, Gary and I think her name was Leah, the young lady that killed herself because of Peter's sexual assault. Because of Peter's sexual assault on her. So while they got Gary like kidnapped and they're like beating him up and all this other stuff, Leah's father, is it Leah or Leia? Y'all know who I'm talking about. Takes takes the bag off of Peter's head, so now Peter knows exactly who kidnapped him. So in doing this, he gets beaten up very badly. He's in a coma, and they're saying they don't know if he's gonna make it. So, because Gary is so damn dumb, when they found out initially that they wouldn't be able to press charges at the police department, at the police station, he, kicked over garbage cans and he did all this extra, making himself look very suspect-like, right? So now he has this detective that's like breathing down his neck because we saw how you acted at the police station, and anybody that would be this like rah-rah about it, and then right away the next day this man gets beaten up like that. It's not a coinky dink, sir. It's not a coinky dink. So basically Gary is going through trying to cover his tracks. He's being super obvious. He's being very awkward. He's you can tell that he's hiding something, which is taking a toll on his relationship with Darcy, who Darcy deserves better. I'm sorry. I like Darcy. She is suffering from PTSD from, what happened when she was in the service. She is trying to get her life back together. She is raising her son, who is a germaphobe. She don't need no more mess in her life. She really doesn't, and she just doesn't deserve it. So she can tell that Gary is hiding something. Gary's being obvious. He's talking fast. He's being shifty. He's making more jokes than need to be made. So come to find out, Peter wakes up And while Peter is telling the detectives and everything that he has amnesia and, he just does not remember who did anything, he does. So he contacts Gary and tells Gary that I know it was you and I know it was Christopher. But I can forget that if you get Sophie to take down the podcast. Because remember, Sophie put up that podcast, airing Peter out, and it's spreading. So Gary was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. You got nothing else to lose. So he calls Christopher and lets him know, we in trouble, bro. You need to get a lawyer. And like, Christopher, this is your fault. You took the hood off his face. And like, I get it. Your child was hurt. As a result, your child committed suicide. But it's like, Christopher, this might have went a little more flawlessly if you wouldn't have done this. So then we have Gary kind of going back, and Darcy figured it out. She was like, you said you were with your dad that this particular night, but I called you. You never leave Colin at home, the dog. You never leave Colin at home by himself for this long. And Darcy ain't dumb. So Darcy's putting clues together, putting stuff together, and then she finally just comes to the realization that you did some fucked up shit. I cannot be around that. I can't have my son be a part of that. I can't live on the edge like this every day, wondering if the police are going to come in and arrest you or whatever. I can't do this. I'm done. So now they done broke up after, they done went and looked at a house together, and they were planning, they were talking about starting a family and stuff together. And this is just another instance of Gary being Gary and fucking shit up. So Gary goes to Sophie and tells Sophie that, I went and I beat up Peter and blah, blah, blah. And he wants you to take down the podcast. Now, Gary is saying he didn't want her to do it. If you didn't want her to do it, why did you even bring it up? See what I be talking about? Where, like, people will say stuff, and even though people will say stuff, and even though they say that they don't want you to do something, they do. Because if you did not want her to take the podcast down, why would you even bring it up to her? You low-key wanted her to come in and save you. That's what you wanted. You wanted her to come in and save you and have your back. So he tells her that, and Sophie is like pissed, and it's just kind of like, I was handling it. I didn't need your help with anything. I didn't need any of this, because without Peter being beat up, that podcast would have just got people talking and talking and talking, and he would have had to, defend it. So Gary ends up having to, Sophie ends up getting the podcast, telling Maggie to take the podcast down, and she tells Gary, stay out of my life for good. And it's like, yeah, Gary, you might as well move your ass to Lennox with Darcy, because Sophie is not feeling it. It's because Gary, really thinks that he's their parent. He does. It's annoying. So then we have Delilah, who is moved back to France and she took Danny with her. Her father had a stroke, and her father did not always live in France, but they went over there, I guess, just on a trip last season, and then because of COVID, they couldn't come back because her father ended up breaking his hip. Delilah only came back really because of what was going on with Sophie when she found out that there was that she was assaulted and all this other stuff. So we have that. Maggie, who was originally working as a brief segment host. Yeah, she was a host of a brief segment on a radio show after that woman got fired, who she was kind of like a shock jock therapist. And then I guess she forgot that the mic was hot, and she went in talking all this mess about people. So she ended up getting fired. Maggie got called in to act as a like a fill-in, a temporary replacement to host the show. We know that Maggie is a real therapist. So Maggie goes into this and she's treating it like real therapy sessions where she's not, invoking too much of herself on people. There was I think in the last episode there was a person that called in that has breast cancer, and she was like trying to figure out like how she should deal with it. She didn't really tell her family and her friends, and instead of Maggie being like, I understand, when that happened to me, I went to support groups, Maggie held herself back. And because of that, she was she was trending very low with the numbers because people were saying that she didn't come across as personal. She came across very cold. And when you listen to a show like that, you're not looking for like a true therapy session. You know what I mean? And that's where Maggie kind of went wrong because she wasn't putting any of her personality into it. On top of the fact that Maggie was like getting into it with all the other people, and she wasn't making friends with any of the other people that were working there. She was only cool with like her producer. She got into it with that angry ass man that did the traffic and the weather. So like she ended up like actually accidentally telling on like the station manager and saying that she was like creating a hostile work environment. I'm like, girl, you knew damn well that lady's name was not Regina from HR. Like that, when she said that, I thought it was the woman that was coming in to actually replace her. I was like, why would you even tell her that? What is going on? So that's them. Eddie is like so obsessed with trying to figure out who hit him and put him in the wheelchair. So he ends up, the woman calls him, which I believe was last episode. This woman calls him, and by the magic of TV, Eddie just so happens to start recording the phone call. So he's listening to it, and he's actually taking segments of it and like enhancing them and slowing them down so he can hear background noise. He finds out the woman works at the store called Halpert's, which actually looks like a big Walmart or something. Like they just kind of sell everything. So he is like obsessed with like going and finding out who this woman is because he feels like he's blaming her for ultimately losing his family, when in reality you chose to break your sobriety. You chose to do that. You know what I mean? So I mean, it is what it is. It's unfortunate that he even got hit by the car, and it's more than effed up that she drove off, and he like goes and he's like stalking people in this store, like chases this woman out. She ends up being a fan from like back in the day. Now he's embarrassed, and now the woman is probably thinking, well, I would hate I don't really want to meet celebrities or people that I'm huge fans of, because I don't ever want to have that type of interaction where you're going in and you're thinking someone is like, you're a huge fan of someone and then they turn out to be a dick, or you know what I mean, they turn out to just be a trash person, because then it's like, okay. So he ends up finding a woman in the store, and he's getting ready to like dime her out, like yell at her. And then Theo comes running up, and he doesn't. But the woman calls him and asks to meet him so they could talk. They meet at this diner, and Eddie is like very bitchy, and I mean within like rightly so. And the woman tells him like she is so emotional, she's crying, she's shaking, she's scared, she feels bad, but she is saying how her husband drinks a lot. And when her husband drinks a lot, he gets abusive. And it was one night that he had been drinking a lot and he was like on 10. So she grabbed her son and they were driving, and she got distracted because, she's frazzled, she's nervous, her anxiety is probably sky high. Her son drops his applesauce. She said she looked down for 1 second to pick it up, and before like she blinked and she had hit Eddie. And because she was scared, she just drove off. And on one hand, I'm like, wow, but on the other hand, it's like, I get it, but why did you drive off? Because it's not like you were drunk or anything, lady. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you don't know how people are going to react and sue you. Like, it's just, it was actually very sad. But she ends up giving Eddie all this money that she had saved up, and Eddie was like, "I don't want your money." So, but after she told Eddie like her background, he was just kind of like, oh, man, not being kind of, mean to her. So to tie in so Eddie has been working with, God, excuse me. Eddie has been working with this new physical therapist that's going to take Darcy's place when Darcy moves. So he's working with a new physical therapist that's in a wheelchair himself. And that has like become his sounding board because you can't talk to Gary about anything because Gary makes a joke about everything. And he probably really doesn't want to talk to Rome about it because Rome is. So he's just like, he's been bouncing it off of him. And the guy is just like, you need to like make peace with this and move on, basically. So Eddie has moved into his new apartment. He wanted to get his own space for him and Theo. And he eventually, at the end of last episode, he gives that apartment to her for a fresh start. And he tells her that, the apartment is under my name, so he can't find you. Rent is paid for the first 6 months. This is your chance to start brand new. You know what I mean? This is your chance to get away, file for divorce, do whatever you need to do right now because I'm giving you this chance. And it was a nice apartment. Like, that apartment looked super, super, super nice. And then, Katherine. Let's go right to Katherine. Katherine's now gay. Or bi, excuse me, be political correct. Katherine is now bi. Katherine's been struggling with, like, dating people and, getting back out there after the divorce. So she gets hooked up with this, I think her name is Shanice Williamson. She gets hooked up with this actress because Rome set it up because both of their kids enjoy Minecraft and like some of the same video games. So they have a play date. She might have been Katherine's like celebrity girl crush because she was like, so like when she came over, but they ended up building like a friendship where they hung out together a lot. They would go to dinner. They got to know each other, and they just got cool friends. And then so they used to get closer and closer and closer, and it was one point where they were actually almost getting ready to kiss. But Katherine's mother came home and caught her. So then at the end of the last episode, we see Katherine get back on her dating profile and put that she is not only interested in men, but she's also interested in women. Which I think is a very shocking way to go with Katherine's character. I low-key thought she would get back with Eddie at some point. But I'm actually surprised that they're throwing that in. But let's see what happens with that. Well, let's see how Theo takes it, because Theo is the most annoying child on the show, y'all. I tell you that. And then finally, Rome and Regina. So this season, we know that it started off with Regina having to officially close the doors on her restaurant. I think it was called Someday. So she ends up going and working at Crocodiles, it looks like kind of like a rainforest cafe type thing. And she's back there and she's trying to change up some of the recipes to make stuff taste better. And it's like, girl, you can't do that. This is a franchise restaurant. The food has to taste the same no matter where you go in the country. If I'm in Chicago, has to taste like it tastes in Atlanta, has to taste like it tastes in LA. Like, you can't be mixing stuff up. So she's like really struggling with going from being able to create all these amazing recipes for herself and for her restaurant, based on what she thinks people would like, as opposed to having to cook within this pocket because that's how That's how you have to do things. She befriends another woman that's in there, another like minority chef who kept throwing out how she worked at these big places and these big names. And Regina kind of clocked it, but stayed cool with her. So the woman actually went to jail for like credit card fraud. And then when she got, like, while she was in jail, she was on kitchen duty. So she learned how to cook. And that's why her, like, her knife skills and stuff are on point, because she took pride in what she was doing in there and probably figured, when I get out, this is what I'm going to do. I want to, become a chef. I want to start cooking. So that's how that went with them. Regina, who has become friends again with Shanice. So Shanice actually gets her a gig on her new movie that she's shooting as a caterer. And I was talking to my brother, and he was like, why isn't Regina just doing like catering? And I'm like, that's true. So she's going to be headed to Miami for a couple of months, I think she said, so she can work as a caterer on this movie set. And she brings old girl from the restaurant with her. And I was like, that's dope, because, help her out, because that woman was like, I can't, it's risky for me. I'm a felon. People aren't going to hire me. But if Regina has this catering, Regina gets this catering company set up and you start to work for her, Regina's not going to care about your background. So that was dope. And then finally, Rome. So we know that Rome's movie was not able to take off last year because of COVID. So he started to film a documentary on like all the different protests and stuff like that were like super like prominent and stuff during last year's Black Lives Matter BLM movement, where there were tons of protests for like Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, all these different protests that were going around. So he went around and he did a lot of like raw footage and made a documentary about it, him and Tyrell together. So Tyrell has gone back to see his mom in Haiti, and he told them he'll be back in a couple of months. And I'm like, isn't Tyrell in school? It's not summer, is it? He's not in college. So I'm concerned about that, but whatever. So Rome does this amazing documentary. He submits it to a film festival. At the film festival, somebody off rip was like, we want to buy it. Festival hasn't even started. So Rome is like, yes, without thinking, without doing any research, without doing any of that, he agrees to sell this. One of the people working at the film festival calls him, this like, I really loved your documentary. I hate that you put it, from the festival. Rome was like, no, I didn't. What are you talking about? The man was like, yeah. So Rome was like, oh, well, I sold it, but you know what? Let me call my agent. Calls his agent. The agent is like, yeah, they want to show it exclusively on their platform. Come to find out, so Rome calls back the guy from the festival and was like, yeah, they just want to show it on their platform, whatever. The man was like, this is a catch and kill. There is another documentary that they're pushing that has bigger name people that, had a bigger budget that they want to take off. Yours is better, probably more authentic. So they bought it so they can shelve it. So Rome is like all defeated, because he was like banking on, having this, like being able to go to a red carpet, and he's telling his dad and stuff. So Rome's dad was like, yeah, I was talking to some people at my church about it, and would you like to come and just show your video to the men's group? And Rome was like, yeah. He gets to the church, it is so many people there. So Rome like feels rejuvenated after that, and he's like, his dad was like, I know it's so many people, I'll tell them you can't show it because of whatever. And Rome was like, you know what, no, I want to do it because he sees a father and son, or like a grandfather and grandson walking, and they're like excited to share that moment together. So Rome was like, what are they going to do? Let them sue me. And that's exactly what they did to his ass. So we see him out to lunch, and he gets served because you can't do that. You don't own it anymore. You don't own it anymore. And it's sad and it's unfortunate that that happened. I hate that that happened to him, but bruh, you gotta be careful. You gotta be careful. So, hopefully I'll be able to do more recaps on here because I've always loved the show. So I'm hoping to do more recaps on here. They might not be right away on like Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever. I think it comes on Wednesdays. So I'm hoping to get them out on Thursday evenings, Thursday afternoon, Thursday evenings. But I will let you guys know. If you are still here 25 minutes later, please hit the subscribe button and I will check you guys in the next one. Bye.